Welcome to the African History Network show. It is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, and we are live. So I'm going to do a follow-up on a story we covered back in February. Some of you may remember this story, and it dealt with an appraiser, a home appraiser, who appraised the value of this African-American couple's home, appraised the value at a very low rate. And this was in California, Paul and Tanisha Tate. We have an update in that story because they filed a lawsuit against the appraiser. Okay, so we're going to talk about that story. Black couple sues appraiser for valuing home at $500,000 more when whitewashed. Black couple sues appraiser for valuing home at $500,000 more when whitewashed. And this deals with systemic racism when it comes to home appraisals. Okay, so this was a story that came out back in February of 2021 out of California. We talked about it here on the show. This week, the African-American couple has filed a lawsuit against the appraiser. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And then we have an update in the arrest of the suspect who allegedly shot and killed the wife of music executive Clarence Avant. Okay, Clarence Avant, Jacqueline Avant. We told you about this story last week. It was a apparent home invasion in Beverly Hills, California, and the wife of music executive Clarence Avant, and Clarence Avant, we know, was the subject of the documentary The Black Godfather. His wife was shot and killed, and we told you that a suspect had been arrested. Okay, now arraignment of the suspect has been delayed, and the suspect is still in the hospital. So we're going to give you an update on that story as well. The arraignment of a Los Angeles man, Ariel Maynor, charged in the shooting death of Jacqueline Avant, the wife of music executive Clarence Avant, was delayed on Tuesday as he remains hospitalized because he apparently shot himself in the foot with his AR-15 assault rifle, and he was wounded and bleeding when police found him. So we'll talk about that. And then December 7th, 1874 was the Vicksburg Massacre in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And this is a massacre and attack on African Americans that surrounded political power as well. We've talked about that before here on the show, the Vicksburg Massacre. So we'll talk about it again today. The Vicksburg Massacre of December 7th, 1874, that left an estimated somewhere between 75 to 300 African Americans killed. And you had white people who attacked African Americans who had organized to defend an African-American sheriff named Peter Crosby. So we'll talk about the Vicksburg massacre of 1874 in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it corrects your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. All right. Now, on yesterday's show, we covered the Department of Justice refusing to file charges in the, it would be perjury charges against Carolyn Bryant, any type of perjury charges or any charges in the murder of Emmett Till back August 28th, 1955. We're going to be rebroadcasting that broadcast for the next few days on our social media platforms, our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. So check that out. I got a lot of positive responses from the show we did yesterday. And if you missed our show on Tuesday, we actually went through the 16-page Department of Justice report that they released on the case and why they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Carolyn Bryant recanted her testimony and that she lied in the investigation that was conducted in 2004 and the investigation that just concluded yesterday. All right. So I want to jump into this first story here. This deals with, so the Washington Post has a big article about this couple and about discrimination when it comes to home ownership, okay, and appraisals. There was an article from the Washington Post from December 6, 2021, called A Black Couple Says an Appraiser lowballed them, so they whitewashed their home and say the value shot up. So they whitewashed their home and say the value shot up. All right. There was also a really good segment on the Black News Channel yesterday that we're going to go to on the other side of the break. So if we look quickly here at this article from the Washington Post, a black couple says an appraiser lowballed them, so they whitewashed their home and say the value shot up. Now, this story we originally heard back in February of this year. Paul Austin and his wife, Tanisha Tate Austin. Okay, now Paul Austin said he felt good as the appraiser roamed his Northern California home last year, ticking off some of the $400,000 worth of improvements he and his wife, Tanisha Tate Austin, had made to the property. Now, the appraiser noted the fireplace. Paul Austin told a state reparations task force in October 2021, mentioned a room they had added and complemented the view from the new deck. So Paul Austin and his wife, Tanisha, were shocked when the appraiser pegged the value of the Marin City home in the San Francisco Bay Area at $955,000, far lower than previous appraisals. Now, Paul Austin told KGO TV in February 2021, it was a slap in the face. It was a slap in the face. Now, Paul Austin and his wife, Tanisha Tate Austin, decided to get another opinion 3 weeks later. They say in a lawsuit filed on Thursday, they filed this lawsuit last week in federal court in San Francisco. So that'd be Thursday, December 2nd. Now, this time they enlisted the help of their white friend, Jan, who agreed to pretend to be the homeowner for a different appraiser, the lawsuit alleges. The Austins did what is being called whitewashed, and there are numerous stories over the past 2 years dealing with this. The Austins whitewashed their house by removing their family photos and stripping the walls of their African-themed art. Now, their friend Jan helped on this front too by staging photos of her own family, the lawsuit states. Okay, so we continue to see examples of this in different cities where there is a huge discrepancy in the appraisal values of homes that clearly are lived in by African Americans compared to homes that are appear to be owned and lived in by white people. Okay, we see a clear distinction in the appraisal when it comes to the home values. So Jan helped on this front too by staging photos of her own family, the lawsuit says. Now, the new appraisal came in at $1.48 million, nearly $500,000 more than the previous estimate. So the previous estimate was $900,000 $495,000. And this is after they did $400,000 worth of upgrades to the worth of improvements to the home. The new estimate, when it appeared that their white friend Jan owned the home and lived there, came in at $1.48 million. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. We're going to revisit this story also from February, let you hear what happened back in February, and we'll go to the clip from the Black News Channel where they did a segment about this also. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Mental health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African-American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.
Kwanzaa is coming, and the KwanzaaShop.com has all of your Kwanzaa needs. Order your Kwanzaa set today, which includes a kinara, candles, a mat, a cup, the African American flag, and a basket. Visit the KwanzaaShop.com, the KwanzaaShop.com. They have kinara sets, which include a candle holder, candles, a mat, and a cup. Kwanzaa is December 26th through January the 1st. Add the early bird discount code for 10% off your order placed before November 28th. Visit the KwanzaaShop.com and place your order today. The KwanzaaShop.com has all of your Kwanzaa needs to celebrate this African American Pan-African holiday. The KwanzaaShop.com. Okay, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and you can register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. Want to remind you, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturdays, it's a 10-week online course I teach called From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We do the class live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime after you register for the class. And then on Sundays, I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and deal with what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place also. We do that 12 noon to 2 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Normally the classes are $130 each. We have a special bundle pack right now. You can register for both classes for only $70. As soon as you register, you can watch the classes we did this past weekend. Okay. I want to go back to this story here. So there was a really good article from the Washington Post from December 6th, from Monday, December 6th, 2021. A black couple says an appraiser lowballed them, so they whitewashed their home and say the value shot up. All right. Now, this is a continuation of a story that we covered back in February of 2021 about Paul Alston and his wife, Tanisha Tate Alston. Okay. Paul Alston and his wife, Tanisha Tate Alston, who own a home in San Francisco Bay, in Marin City home in San Francisco Bay area. And the home was appraised for $995,000, far lower than previous appraisals. Then they had their white friends sit in and they took down African-American art pictures and things like this. Their white friend pretended to be the homeowner and put up photos of her family, etc. And the appraisal came back at $1.48 million almost $500,000 more than the previous estimate. All right. Now, I want to go to this clip here from, this is from, now they filed a lawsuit also against the appraiser last week. Okay, we're going to talk about that here in just a second. I want to go to this clip here from ABC Channel 7 in the San Francisco area. This is from February 2021. This is the original story about what happened to Paul Austin and Tanisha Tate Austin. Let's go to clip 1, Shakita. All right. Okay, just press play when it starts. TheHill.com also has an...
no secret that home ownership is the pathway to building wealth in America. But what's hard in the Bay Area is even harder for some.
And tonight, a look at the growing inequity in home ownership rates in the Bay Area. ABC 7 News race and culture reporter Julian Glover has the story of a Marin couple who almost got cheated out of $500,000.
You know, I mean, it was work, but it was exciting.
Paul and his wife, Tanisha Austin, felt like they captured a slice of the American dream in 2016 when they purchased their first home together, this original Marin City pole home. But it wasn't without challenges.
As soon as, like, a house came on the market, you go in, you put your bid in, and then you get outbid it by, like, 100,000 or more rather quickly. And that can be, you know, a little bit depressing.
They bought the home off market from another black family, hoping to make homeownership a reality for a young black couple. After moving into the home built in the 1960s, the Austins staged major renovations, adding an entire floor and more than 1,000 square feet of space, along with a deck, new floors, a fireplace, and new appliances. Then they got it appraised.
I read the appraisal. I looked at the number. I was like, this is unbelievable.
The family tells me the appraiser was an older white woman, and they're convinced race was a factor. The home appraised for $989,000, just $100,000 more than the Austins got it appraised for before they started the work, despite $400,000 in renovations.
It was like, you know, it was a slap in the face.
The Austins immediately called their lender and pushed back. After a month of escalating their complaints, they were approved for a second appraisal. When the date came, they got creative.
We had a conversation with one of our white friends, and she was like, no problem. I'll be Tanisha. I'll bring over some pictures of my family. She made our home look like it belonged to her.
And it worked.
So it appraised for $1.482.
Yeah.
Which was 50% more than what it appraised for by a couple weeks prior.
Almost $500,000 more.
The Austins were outraged and believe this is another ugly result of larger systemic issues.
There were implications of the ability to create generational wealth or pass things on if our house is appraised for 50% less than what is valued at.
We know discrimination is in nearly every aspect of the home buying process, and really we need to be addressing it as an industry.
Discrimination in the housing market comes in many forms. It has a long history in our country and in the Bay Area, leading to alarmingly low rates of black Americans owning their own home. Black home ownership lags across the country, with less than half, only 44% of black Americans owning their own home in 2020. Compare that to 74% for white Americans. Looking at the Golden State, just 34% of black Californians own a home. In the Bay Area, those numbers are even lower. Just 33% of black San Francisco residents own a home, compared to 61% of white San Franciscans. The numbers are more drastic in San Jose, with a black home ownership rate of 31% and a white home ownership rate of 65%, more than double. Why are we seeing such a great disparity?
There's still problems in the housing industry of black people being steered away from white neighborhoods, even though that is technically illegal, or black people not having the same access to mortgages that white people have.
According to the National Association of Realtors, black applicants are rejected for mortgage loans at rates 3 times higher than that of white applicants. Another factor suppressing black home ownership.
African Americans have nearly double the amount of student loan debt than we see for white homebuyers. So that's just one of the many hurdles that African American homebuyers are really strapped with and holds back their buying power.
And the pandemic has made things worse. The representative from NAR stressed closing the homeownership gap is essential to closing the wealth gap in our country. To make that happen, equity in housing and access to affordable homes must be the central focus. The Austins agree.
If we are aware that implicit bias exists in other systems, police, school, why wouldn't they also exist in the housing market? And then what can we do to, fix that?
There could be help on the way in the form of two Biden administration proposals. The first would extend $15,000 in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. The other, a $100 billion fund to update existing and create new affordable housing. Covering race, culture, and social justice, Jacqueline Glover, ABC 7 News.
Okay, so very good reporting from Jacqueline Glover, ABC Channel 7 News in the San Francisco area. So that was from February 2021. You may remember we covered this story back in February when the news broke about this case. This is the article here from ABC 7 San Francisco, abc7.com. Black California couple lowballed by $500,000 in home appraisal, believe race was a factor. Okay, now they have filed Paul Austin and Tanisha Tate Austin filed a lawsuit against the appraiser whose name is Janet Miller. Okay, they filed the lawsuit on Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. This article here from the Washington Post that many people may have seen, you may have seen on social media, what have you. You may have seen the story that the Black News Channel did on December 7th. This article talks about the lawsuit that they filed. A Black couple says an appraiser lowballed them, so they whitewashed their home and say the value shot up. All right. This is Paul Austin and Tanisha Tate Austin. Also, thehill.com has a short article dealing with the lawsuit that they filed as well. Okay, so the article goes on to say from the Washington Post, Austin and his wife, Tanisha Tate, decided to get another opinion. All right. Now, the new appraisal came in at $1.48 million after they had their friend Jan, who's a white female, pretend to be the homeowner and put in pictures of her white family to make it look like someone white lived there. Now, the Austins, according to the lawsuit, believe the first appraiser, whose name is Jeanette Miller, gave them a lowball valuation because they're African-American. The couple and the nonprofit organization Fair Housing Advocates of Northern California are now suing Jeanette Miller and her company, Miller and Perotti Real Estate Appraisals in San Rafael, California. They're seeking financial damages and asking the court to order the defendants to ensure they won't discriminate when appraising homes. They're asking the court to ensure the court to order the defendants to ensure that they won't discriminate when appraising homes. Now, Jeanette Miller and her appraisal company did not respond to messages from the Washington Post sent late Sunday night. Attorneys with the Fair Housing Advocates who are representing themselves and the Austin family also did not immediately respond to requests for comment. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. We're going to go to the segment from the Black News Channel from December 7th that dealt with homes in African-American communities see loss of $156 billion due to racism and appraisals. That's the segregation tax that we've talked about. We've dealt with the study from the Brookings Institute that deals with how African-American homes on average are valued at $48,000 less than comparable white homes. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Soul in Motion, celebrating 38 years in the arts. This energetic ensemble of dancers and drummers was started by percussionist Michael Friend and is led by choreographer Associate Director Pam Lassiter. Based in the Washington, D.C. area, Soul in Motion is now accepting bookings for Black History Month, Juneteenth, and summer festivals in 2022. Soul in Motion is also available for more intimate events like naming ceremonies and weddings. To find out more or to book your date, call 240-452-1349 or send an email to info@soulinmotion.org. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Soul in Motion, celebrating our history, our culture, our future. Soul in Motion. Theater, African dance, and drumming since 1984.
History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, and we are live. Okay, calling number is 313-778-7600. If you have a quick question or comment, 313-778-7600. If you have a quick question or comment. Also, if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, we know Kwanzaa is coming up, African American History Month in January, Women's History Month in March, Dr. King Day, African American History Month in February, Dr. King Day, January, Women's History Month, March, Juneteenth in June. Email me at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and we can make that happen. Also, the online courses that I teach, these are 10-week online courses. If you want me to teach these classes modified for your church, your organization, your study group, etc., email me. We can make that happen also, either in person or virtually. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about this story out of Marin City in the San Francisco Bay Area, and this is a story we covered here back in February. ABC Channel 7 out of San Francisco had this story: Black couple lowballed by $500,000 in home appraisal, believe race was a factor. And this is about Paul Austin and his wife, Tanisha Tate Austin. And last week on Thursday, December 2nd, they filed a lawsuit against the appraiser, Jeanette Miller, and her company, her appraisal company. Black couple sues appraiser for valuing home at $500,000 more when whitewashed. Now, this is an article from thehill.com from December 8th, 2021. Paul Austin and Tanisha Tate Austin filed a lawsuit in federal district court this week. An appraiser this week after an appraiser in 2020 valued the California home at nearly $500,000 less than it was worth earlier that year. So the lawsuit, it appears the lawsuit was filed on Thursday, December 2nd. The appraiser valued the Black couple's Bay Area home at $995,000, notably less than the $1.48 million it was supposedly worth 10 months prior, when their white friend sat in the kitchen and pretended to be the owner. At that time, they also whitewashed their home by hiding photos and artwork, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. Now the couple are suing Jeanette Miller, as well as the firm Miller and Perotti Real Estate Inc., and a national firm, AMC Links LLC. They will seek a jury trial, payment for damages, and a court order that would require the appraisers to take steps to ensure that alleged discriminatory practices do not continue, the San Francisco Chronicle reported. Paul Austin said, "We did our homework." He told the state reparations task force in October, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, quote, "We believe the white lady wanted to devalue our property because we are in a Black neighborhood and the home belonged to a Black family," end quote. "We believe the white lady wanted to devalue our property because we are in a Black neighborhood and the home belonged to a Black family." Now, on the Black News Channel, on Tuesday, December 7th, they did a good segment dealing with this. Homes in Black communities see loss of $156 billion due to racism and appraisals. This is Tashani Whitlow for the Black News Channel. Let's go to clip number 2, Shakita.
Injustice is preventing Black home ownership. That's the argument the Washington Post article makes, where a couple in San Francisco says an appraiser lowballed them before they whitewashed their house. And if that wasn't bad enough, a study from the Brookings Institute found that homes in Black neighborhoods were undervalued by an average, get this, $48,000, amounting to $156 billion in losses. So how can African Americans fight this misjustice, right? Joining us now to give us more insight on this issue, we have Shante Patton. She is the Vice President and National Education Chair for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Shante, it's a pleasure to have you. I mean, you just hear something like that. It just seems so unbelievable. But talk about how, unfortunately, this is happening more and more to folks like us.
You know, this has been happening for a long time. And just because we don't hear about it, we start to think that it's not actually happening. And a lot of the issues that we have is because the majority of appraisers are white men, and they make the barrier, you know, of entry so hard for African Americans or anyone of color, you know, that we find ourselves in our equity, in our community, and our wealth in the hands of an older white man who has been appraising homes potentially in a racial biased way for quite a while.
Shante, I mean, what does the color of the appraiser's skin, what does my color have to do with me getting what is rightfully mine? Why do I got to whitewash my house to get the appropriate value?
You know, when we have people appraising the property and they already have bias against the community, or they already think that this community should be valued less because of the amount of Black or brown people in the community, and they use their expertise as a way to justify these things, then we will continue to have this problem, even though it's not something that we should be dealing with, especially right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Shante, I mean, tell us how do we navigate this system? Because it is clearly a system, right? It sounds like a game, if anything.
It is a game, and really it comes down to policy. Really, the first thing that we need to do is close the barrier of entry to becoming an appraiser so that we can get more people of color into those positions. That would be the first thing. In the meantime, though, for homeowners, unfortunately, yes, we need to get real estate professionals in there who can truly help them, you know, take down the level of culture in the home until we can work through the policy, because that's where the change actually comes. We cannot have our future in the hands of people who have bias, and they've been able to control that part of the market
Shante,
for so long.
I'm so sorry. I'm like trying to pick up my mouth right now. Take out the culture. So I got to take my grandmother's, grandfather's photos down. Yeah. I got to take my Black art down. I got nothing else.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And we have to make change ASAP.
So, I mean,
we should be able to.
So you're saying we need to overhaul the system, right? Is that ultimately what you're saying?
We have to overhaul the system. We have to overhaul the system, and we have to get appraisers who look like the people that they are appraising the homes for. Until we do that, we will continue to have this problem. So the system of being able to get into the door of an appraiser is too hard. It also requires them to be sponsored by someone. Well, then you have to find someone willing to sponsor you already in that position. So it takes us back to pre-fair housing, things where even real estate professionals have to be sponsored by a white person in order to do real estate. So we're in that same position where appraisers have to be sponsored by someone else. We have to close that gap of the policy so we can get people in there that look like us so that we can get our fair share of this market.
But aren't there laws in place, Shante, that are supposed to help prevent housing discrimination? If I'm not mistaken, the Attorney General just filed a lawsuit.
Yes, there are laws in place, but there is still the basis of it comes from an appraiser's thought process that I am going to value this neighborhood at this, and they find a good way to justify it. So a lot of the things that we're going around, it has to come down to the lawsuits, you know, to calling these people out, to writing articles, to having conversations like this, to be able to show that there is a way for them to get around the law. And that's where we are right now.
All right, I want to end this interview on a happy note because this is just exhausting and depressing, to say the least. So tell us how your association is trying to change the narrative.
So the National Association of Real Estate Brokers was founded in 1947 out of a need for democracy in housing. Since then, we have focused tremendously on the Black homeownership gap. In addition to that, we focus a lot on down payment assistance funds, as well as changing the credit model and making it easier for people to get financing. So we're doing our part in those directions and also bringing light to the disparities that are in place for Black homeowners and potential buyers.
Shantae Child, this conversation made me wish it was Friday. Thank you so much for stopping by BNC Live. Thank you for that insight.
All right, pause right there. Okay, so that was Tashani Whitlow with Shantae Wild from the Black News Channel, and that is from that clip is actually from December. Well, it says December 8th. I guess it's from today. I think I saw it today or something. I can't remember, but this was actually, I think this clip was from yesterday, December 7th, and they uploaded it today. But anyway, this is a good segment here from the Black News Channel. And they talk about the lawsuits. The Department of Justice just announced in October filing the lawsuit when it came to redlining as well. Merrick Garland, we dealt with that here on this show. Merrick Garland filed a lawsuit regarding that. And he also talked about the settlement of a redlining lawsuit from early, I think it was early in the year also. So the lawsuits need to continue as well. And then you have to have tougher laws because redlining is already illegal, but there are different loopholes and different ways around it. Now, we're coming up here on the break, and I want to also check out this article here we've talked about before. This is from curbed.com, and it deals with the study from the Brookings Institute that deals with how the average African-American home is valued at $48,000 less than a comparable white home. And nationwide, this amounts to $156 billion in cumulative losses for African Americans, a loss in home value, which then negatively impacts African American wealth, median household wealth, and then also our ability to generate and to pass on generational wealth as well. So read this piece here from curbed.com, how a segregation tax is costing Black American homeowners $156 billion. This is from November 27, 2018. All right, we're coming up on the break. List to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Mental health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African-American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All Black, all positive, all the time. The largest Black-owned streaming television network in the world, bringing our people together worldwide, controlling our messages, our story, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30-plus channels, thousands of shows. Black on Purpose Television Network. Subscribe now.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. Okay, back to our story from the top of the hour. Black couple sues appraiser for valuing home at $500,000 more when whitewashed. Now, the segment that we just went to, that was from the Black News Channel. Okay, very good segment, and that's on their YouTube channel. BNC. Now, if we go back here to the piece from the Washington Post, and we're going to clip 3 here in just a minute, Shakita, about an update on the suspect who shot and killed Jacqueline Avant. Okay, if we go back to this article from the Washington Post from December 6, 2021. A black couple says an appraiser lowballed them, so they whitewashed their home and say the value shot up. On page 2 of the article, it talks about the study from the Brookings Institute that I mentioned right before the break. A 2018 study by the Brookings Institution found that homes in black neighborhoods in U.S. metropolitan areas were undervalued by an average of $48,000. Amounting to $156 billion in losses, in losses. Once again, this negatively impacts generational wealth, the ability for African Americans to pass on wealth to the next generation. Now, differences in the quality of the houses and neighborhoods did not fully explain the gap. According to the study led by Andre Perry, senior fellow for Brookings Metro, who studies housing discrimination. Once again, this is why when I hear white people who say that African Americans just need to try harder to be equally successful as white people, I said, that's not how you did it. You had help from racism. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, benefits, privileges, land, access to opportunity, access to education, media, jobs, etc. And they use that to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. If you really want to deal with the history on this. Quote, Andre Perry said, it's almost when people see black neighborhoods, they see twice as much crime than there actually is. It's almost when people see black neighborhoods, they see twice as much crime than there actually is. They see worse education than there actually is, Andre Perry told the Indianapolis Star. He said, I think this is what's happening when appraisers, lenders, real estate agents see blackness. I think this is what's happening when appraisers, lenders, real estate agents see blackness. They devalue the asset. They devalue the property. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Now, for the Austins, they bought the four-bedroom, 2-bath house in 2016 for $550,000 when it had 1,248 square feet. Before purchasing, they struggled to compete in a hot housing market. But the previous owners, keen on helping a black couple achieve home ownership, sold them the place off market. Over the next 2 years, the Austins spent $400,000 to improve their home. They say in their lawsuit, they installed new appliances and fixtures in the kitchen and bathrooms. They refinished the hardwood floors, replaced windows, and painted the inside. In May 2018, a new appraisal concluded the house was worth $864,000, according to the lawsuit. The Austins kept renovating. They added a new foundation and retaining wall, creating more living space on the basement level. They put in a deck and a gas fireplace. They carved out a separate unit with its own kitchen and bathroom that could be used as a home office or a rental. They carved out a separate unit with its own kitchen and bathroom that could be used as a home office or a rental. Through all the renovations, the Austins nearly doubled the house's square footage. Okay, so read the rest of this piece here from the Washington Post, which deals with update on this story, and it deals with the lawsuit that they filed last week. A black couple says an appraiser lowballed them, so they whitewashed their home and say the value shot up. Okay, we're going to go to update here. We're going to clip 3, Shakita. We're going to update here on the suspect who allegedly shot and killed Jacqueline Avant, wife of music executive Clarence Avant. Let's go to clip 3, Shakita.
The man accused of killing Jacqueline Avant in Beverly Hills is expected to be arraigned today. 29-year-old Ariel Maynor is charged with murder and attempted murder. Police say Avant was shot during a break-in last Wednesday in her home. She was a well-known philanthropist and wife of music legend Clarence Avant.
All right, now, is that it? Okay, so there's an article from ABC channel, what is that? ABC 7 out of Beverly Hills. Arraignment of man charged in fatal shooting of Jacqueline Avant delayed. Suspect still hospitalized. So we covered this tragic story last week, and we're re-airing some of those broadcasts on the days that we dealt with this story also. The Ariel Maynor was arrested after allegedly accidentally shooting himself while breaking into a home an hour after Jacqueline Avant's shooting. We go to ABC 7 out of San Francisco area. The arraignment of a Los Angeles man charged in the shooting death of Jacqueline Avant, the wife of music executive Clarence Avant, was delayed on Tuesday as he remains hospitalized. Let's see. Ariel Maynor, 29 years old, was due at the airport, at the airport branch courthouse, where he was slated to be arraigned on one count each of murder, attempted murder, and being a felon in possession of a firearm, along with 2 counts of residential burglary with a person present, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Now, the criminal complaint also includes an allegation that Ariel Maynor used an assault long barrel pistol during the crimes. Ariel Maynor, 29 years old, allegedly shot and killed Jacqueline Avant, who was 81 years old, at about 2:25 a.m. during a robbery inside her home in the 1100 block of Mator Place in Beverly Hills. He is also accused of shooting at a security guard who was not wounded during the robbery, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Okay, Maynor was arrested after allegedly accidentally shooting himself while breaking into a home in the 6,000 block of Graciosa Drive in Hollywood Hills, roughly an hour after Jacqueline Avant's shooting, authorities said. All right, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Let me clear this line. Okay. All right, let's keep going here. Stand by. All right. So Los Angeles police responding to the call found Ariel Maynor at the scene suffering from a gunshot wound to a foot, according to Beverly Hills Police Chief Mark Stainbrook. Okay, so we'll keep you up to date on developments here in this tragic story. He's still in the hospital, and it's just a crazy story. Now, among the evidence collected was a quote unquote a suspected weapon from the crime, described by police as an AR-15 rifle. Police Chief Stainbrook and said Ariel Maynor is on parole and has an extensive criminal record, which bars him from possessing a weapon. According to court records, Ariel Maynor pleaded no contest to a domestic violence charge in July 2013 and was placed on probation. But later that year, he pleaded no contest to a robbery charge and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He also has a grand theft conviction from 2010, according to court records. Okay, and that was December. I think that was from December 1st that the break-in and the shooting took place. That had been Wednesday, December 1st. All right, quote, the evidence thus far shows that only one suspect was involved in the crime and the motive remains under investigation, said Police Chief Stainbrook. Video from the Avant home on Wednesday morning showed a shattered sliding glass door. Okay, that was Wednesday, December 1st. A sliding glass door indicative of a break-in. So you can read the rest of this here from ABC 7 out of Beverly Hills, ABC 7. Arraignment of man charged in fatal shooting of Jacqueline Avant delayed. Suspect still hospitalized. And this is from Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. Okay, lastly, I want to go to this story here. Okay, so December 7th, 1874. I was thinking about Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. December 7th, 1874 was the Vicksburg Massacre in Mississippi. We talked about this before, and we just had the anniversary of the Vicksburg Massacre. Now, there's an article from the Zen Education Project on this. There's also one that we posted on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, from the Equal Justice Initiative, EJI.org also. Okay, so if we look at this piece here from the Zen Education Project, and we deal with the Vicksburg Massacre and other massacres in the 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. On December 7th, 1874, the Reconstruction era Vicksburg Massacre occurred in Mississippi, with estimates ranging from 75 to 300 African Americans killed. Estimates ranging from 75 to 300 African Americans killed. White people attacked African American citizens who had organized to defend Peter Crosby, who was an African American sheriff. Peter Crosby. So this is during Reconstruction. Reconstruction is 1865 to 1877, and African Americans are making advancements. And some African Americans were making advancements, and they were betrayed by both the Republicans and the Democrats with the Compromise of 1877. Now, formerly enslaved and a veteran of the Union Army, Peter Crosby had been forced to resign. Peter Crosby had been forced to resign from his elected role as sheriff. Now, this is domestic terrorism, attacking African-American politicians and intimidating us to keep us from voting. Same thing January 6th insurrection was, okay? And the insurrection is still brewing, okay? That's a continuation. The January 6th insurrection is a continuation of the Civil War and the domestic terrorism that was taking place during Reconstruction and after Reconstruction. So a detailed description of the matter is in the book, A Nation Under Our Feet, Black Political Struggles in the Rural South from Slavery to the Great Migration. All right. Now, and this is by Teach Reconstruction Campaign Advisor and historian Steve Hahn. So most important was the emergence of what's known as the White League, which and the White Line Movement, L-I-N-E, the White Line Movement, more generally in Louisiana and Mississippi. Now committed to drawing the racial line in politics and inviting, quote, all white men without regard to former party affiliations, end quote, to unite. The White League was first organized in Opelousas, Louisiana in late April 1874, and then spread rapidly. Now, Opelousas, Louisiana is where you have the Opelousas, Louisiana race riot of 1868, okay, which involved voting as well. And you had white domestic terrorists attacking African Americans to intimidate us, to keep us from voting also. That was in Opelousas, Louisiana, 1868. Now, it clearly built on foundations established by the Ku Klux Klan and the Knights of the White Camellia, okay, two domestic terrorist organizations, white supremacist organizations. A Union Army commander regarded the White League as a, quote, second edition of the White Camellia campaign of 1868, but was even more directly aligned with the Democratic Party at the time, Indeed, leagues were often little more than local Democratic clubs converted into paramilitary companies. Quote, if the Democratic Party is arrayed against the Negro and the Republicans, end quote, the Opelousas Courier proclaimed, it becomes a white league and no one can object to its efficient organization. It becomes a white league and no one can object to its efficient organization, end quote. Now, white leaguers surely recognized that the federal government was losing interest in interfering in Southern politics and sustaining Republican regimes by military means. And we saw this with the Clinton, Mississippi race riot of 1875, when Republican President Ulysses S. Grant refused to intervene, and he claimed his doctrine of non-intervention. And he basically said that, the North is tired of dealing with these racial incidents that happen every year. And toward the end of Reconstruction, there was a diminishing desire on behalf of Republicans to continue to deal with the issues of African Americans and fight against the white supremacists. If you go back to 1871, when the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 was passed by Congress, President Ulysses S. Grant declared martial law in 9 counties in South Carolina to crack down on the Klan, who was attacking African-American elected officials, attacking white elected officials, beating them up, killing them, things like this. He declared martial law in 1871. In 1875, he did not get involved in the Clinton, Mississippi race riot. Now, we've talked about the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 as well, and I deal with this in my class on Saturday also, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And the Ku Klux Klan Act was one of the 3 force acts that were passed during the Reconstruction era. And it's still on the books today. And it was weakened by the U.S. Supreme Court around 1883 or so, but it's still on the books today. History.house.gov, which in House.gov is the official website of the House of Representatives. History.house.gov is their history section. they have a piece here on the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. Okay, April 20th, 1871. On this date, the House approved an act to enforce the provisions of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and for other purposes, also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act. It introduced H.R. 320 on March 28, 1871 by Representative Samuel Shellabarger of Ohio. The bill passed the House on April 6, 1871, and returned from the Senate with amendments on April 14th. Okay, so the Ku Klux Klan Act, the third of a series of increasingly stringent enforcement acts. Enforcement acts are also known as force acts. There were 4 of them during the Reconstruction era. It was designed to eliminate extra-legal violence, and protect the civil and political rights of 4 million freed African slaves. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, defined citizenship and guaranteed due process and equal protection of the law to all. Vigilante groups, the Ku Klux Klan, however, freely threatened African Americans and their white allies in the South and undermined the Republican Party's plan for Reconstruction. The bill authorized the president to intervene in the former rebel states, the former Confederate states, that attempted to deny, quote, any person or any class of persons of the equal protection of the laws or of equal privileges or immunities under the laws, end quote. To take action against this newly defined federal crime, the president could suspend habeas corpus, deploy the U.S. military, or use other means as he may deem necessary. Opponents denounced the bill as an unconstitutional attack on state governments and individual liberty. Okay. Now, after both chambers of Congress agreed to the conference report on April 20th, Ulysses S. Grant signed the bill into law that day. Nearly 6 months later, in October of 1871, President Ulysses S. Grant used these powers of the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 in several South Carolina counties, demonstrating the willingness of the Republican-led federal government to take decisive action to protect the civil and political rights of the freed people during Reconstruction. But when it came to 4 years later, Clinton, Mississippi race riot of 1875, Ulysses S. Grant did not intervene. There was a diminishing desire by Republicans to intervene in white supremacist attacks on African Americans in the South. And in 1874, the 1874 midterm election, Democrats took back control of the House of Representatives. Republicans lost control of the House of Representatives for the first time since before the Civil War. Okay, when Lincoln won his first term in basically 1861 when he was inaugurated. Okay, now if we go back here quickly here, white leaguers surely recognized that the federal government was losing interest in interfering in Southern politics and sustaining Republican regimes by military means. But they also responded to the growing assertiveness of African Americans within the Republican Party, which showed itself in the rising incidence of black office holding. Okay. So during Reconstruction, you're going to have about 2,000 African American men who get elected to public office. All right. And we're voting because of the 15th Amendment of 1870. The African American men are voting because of the 15th Amendment of 1870. Now, by that time, white line, LINE counterparts in Vicksburg, Mississippi had demonstrated how paramilitary mobilization and very definite intimidation could bring electoral success, even where black voters had held decided numerical sway. This is why we have to be careful and under no circumstances can the white nationalist party, also known as the GOP, the party of the domestic terrorists, they cannot come back into power in the House or the Senate. Because if you actually understand what happened toward the end of Reconstruction and after Reconstruction ended, and the white supremacists taking back control of the state legislatures in Mississippi and South Carolina, and the majority of the majority of the elected officials in the South Carolina state legislature were black men during Reconstruction. If you understand them taking back control, like in Mississippi, and African Americans were the majority of the voters in Mississippi, and they had a Mississippi State Convention in 1890, and it was called the Mississippi Plan, which became the model for other southern states to suppress the African American vote. And South Carolina does it in 1895, Louisiana 1898, Alabama 1901, Oklahoma's going to do it as well. Well, the same thing is taking place now, except now it's the Republican Party doing it. Go back and read this article that we talk about here frequently, but all this deals with history. The Mississippi plan to keep blacks from voting in 1890. We came here to exclude the Negro. And we actually talked about this this past weekend in my class from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, because we went through the 1890s and into the early 1900s. Then we dealt with Williams versus Mississippi, 1898 U.S. Supreme Court case, when Mississippi gets sued and the claim was that Mississippi was violating the 15th Amendment. U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the poll taxes and literacy test that Mississippi put in place did not violate the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. So we saw this continue throughout southern states. And what Mississippi did became known as the Mississippi Plan, which became the model that other southern states used to suppress the African American vote and impose Jim Crow laws. Then you have Plessy versus Ferguson, U.S. Supreme Court case 1896, that legalized the Jim Crow laws. Now, because of what happened after Reconstruction, with the passing of laws, poll taxes, literacy tests, then in Louisiana with the grandfather clause of 1898, and then other states are going to adopt the grandfather clause. Different states that have like all white primaries, like in Texas, all white primaries, etc. That's why you needed a Voting Rights Act of 1965 to deal with what took place after Reconstruction ended and the voter suppression tactics, the Jim Crow laws that the poll taxes, the literacy test that these southern states had in place. That's why you needed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to erase all of that. Okay, now if we go back here, if anything still held back a full-scale white paramilitary offensive, it was removed when in the November elections of 1874, congressional Democrats won control of the House of Representatives for the first time since Southern slaveholders had rebelled against the national government. Okay, for the first time since before the Civil War, Democrats took back control of the House of Representatives in that 1874 midterm election. In Vicksburg, Mississippi, white liners seemed to commemorate the event by moving quickly to complete the work they had begun in the summer. This time they focused on the country rather than the municipal government. This time they focused, the county. This time they focused on the county rather than the municipal government, which was almost wholly dominated by Black Republicans, including African-American Sheriff Peter Crosby, who was a native Mississippian who had served in the Union Army during the Civil War. Meeting in December of 1874, they demanded the resignations of the white liners, these white supremacists, this white paramilitary organization. They demanded the resignations of all of the African-American officials and pressured African-American Sheriff Peter Crosby to yield under what he regarded as threats of assassination. Now, Peter Crosby then headed to the state capitol for help. Republican Governor Adelbert Ames of the party's radical faction turned a sympathetic ear. He ordered the riotous and disorderly persons who had expelled from office the legally elected sheriff, Peter Crosby. The governor ordered them to disperse. Okay, so Governor Adelbert Ames ordered these white domestic terrorists to disperse and retire peaceably and, quote, submit to the legally constituted authorities, end quote. He also instructed a Warren County militia company to cooperate with Sheriff Peter Crosby's effort to regain office and suppress the mob, and suggested that Sheriff Peter Crosby should summon a posse for further assistance. Now, Governor Adelbert Ames' orders did little to change the behavior or temper of the Vicksburg white domestic terrorists, but Sheriff Peter Crosby's call for a posse revealed a strong foundation of loyalty and organizational readiness among African Americans and the surrounding countryside. With dispatch owing to the churches, political clubs, and other institutions of African American community life, a major mobilization took place. As several hundred African Americans marched in 3 columns toward Vicksburg, Mississippi, even Sheriff Peter Crosby feared the consequences and tried to turn some of them back. But it was too late. White people had opened fire, and despite some brief standoffs, the African Americans were forced to flee. For another 10 days, some of the young white participants, joined by reinforcements from across the river in Louisiana, stayed on the warpath. When the smoke cleared, at least 29 African Americans had been killed, and a great many more had been wounded and terrorized. Now, their estimates of somewhere between 75 to 300 African Americans killed, okay, during the Vicksburg Massacre, during that period of time. There's estimates of somewhere between 75 to 300 killed. Now, the seat of county government remained in the hand of the white domestic terrorist organization called the White Liners. And Sheriff Peter Crosby, briefly held as a prisoner, was compelled to resign yet again by these white domestic terrorists, like the ones that tried to overthrow the government January 6, 2021. Now, Governor Adelbert Ames called the state legislature into session, and together they succeeded in convincing President Ulysses S. Grant to send a company of federal troops to quell the disturbances in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and reinstall African-American Sheriff Peter Crosby. But Peter Crosby's days in the office were numbered, and so too it appeared were those of Republicans over much of the state of Mississippi. For the several-month White Line campaign in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and Warren County amounted to a rehearsal for redemption, or really a rehearsal for domestic terrorism by these white supremacist groups in Mississippi. Torchlight processions of paramilitary drilling the disruption of Republican political meetings, the harassment of African American workers, the intimidation and assassination of African American leaders, the driving off of local office holders, and the disabling of armed African American resistance, all of which made their appearance in the Vicksburg Massacre of 1874, were to come into concerted use in 1875 in counties that previously had safe Republican majorities. History is repeating itself, because you can draw a direct line from the Vicksburg Massacre of 1874, trying to overthrow duly elected officials, to what took place January 6, 2021, and what's taking place right now with the voter suppression laws Republicans are pushing in state legislatures based upon the big lie. You can draw a direct line. This was one of many massacres in U.S. history. Many of the massacres, such as this one, were designed to reassert white supremacy during Reconstruction, and they even and then later on they're going to write it into their state constitutions. So if our vote doesn't matter, why do Republicans work so hard to suppress the African American vote? They didn't tell African Americans back then your vote doesn't matter. The domestic terrorists, they were trying to keep us from voting. December 7th, 1874, the Vicksburg Massacre in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Let's see here. Read this, because this past weekend we talked about the Alabama State Constitution of 1901 that codified white supremacy. Let me pull this up quickly, then we have to get out of here. Alabama State Constitution in 1901 that codified white supremacy. Now, that's not me saying that. That's what the Encyclopedia of Alabama says. Encyclopedia of Alabama, encyclopediaofalabama.org, Alabama Constitution, 1901. Written primarily to codify white supremacy by disfranchising African Americans, blacks. The Constitution of 1901 continues to shape Alabama politics in the 21st century. The Constitution also concentrated power in the state legislature, decreased opportunities for home rule, and established voter requirements that even many white men could not meet because they were trying to suppress the African American vote, reducing the political influence of the state's many poor whites, because they're trying to go after African Americans and get them voted and suppress the vote so they can't elect African Americans and Republicans into statewide office. The political developments that led to the Constitution, Alabama State Constitution 1901, originated in the post-Civil War Reconstruction era. The Republican-controlled U.S. Congress abolished slavery under the 13th Amendment, granted citizenship to former slaves, the 14th Amendment, and guaranteed the right to vote to African-American men, the 15th Amendment. Congress forced the ex-Confederate states to pass constitutions that further articulated these rights for former slaves. When Alabama's Democratic Party regained control of the state government in the election of 1874, and we know in 1874, Democrats took back control of the U.S. House of Representatives also, one of the first actions was to overturn Alabama's Reconstruction Constitution of 1868, which had expanded voting rights among African Americans and poor whites. So one of the things they did when they took back control of the state government in 1874 is to overturn the Alabama Reconstruction Constitution of 1868. Read the rest of this here from Encyclopedia Alabama Constitution of 1901. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you like this type of information, this type of history, you can register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Each class, we go through and analyze approximately a 10-year period of history. We get deep into this information. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. We go chronologically throughout history to understand what happened to us after slavery ended. What were the laws and policies put in place to put us in the predicament we are right now to understand where we need to go from here. That's Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime, even after the 10-week online course is over with. You can still go back and watch the full course. You still have full access to the course. And you can use this with your children. I would say the information is PG-13. So it's not graphic and crazy. I don't do a lot of cursing, things like this. On Sundays, I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So the classes are regularly $130. We have a special bundle pack right now. You can register for both classes for only $70. So it's a $260 value for only $70. And you can register for the classes individually if you want to. Understand the transatlantic slave trade is on sale $60, and from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement is on sale $50. Okay. So that's right at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have a special bundle pack going on for a few more days. Also, check out the Kwanzaa Shop. We have it right on the homepage of our website, TheAHNShow.com. You can get all your Kwanzaa needs, your kanaras, your mats, your flags, all that. And this is Sister Nubia Wardford's business, TheKwanzaaShop.com. So we have that right on the homepage of our website, and you can go directly to their website, TheKwanzaaShop.com also. African-American business owners, post the name of your business here in the thread of the broadcast. Email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Pick your 30-second to 60-second commercial, put into the rebroadcast of these shows, and also into the audio podcast of these shows as well. We're on 10 different audio podcast platforms: iHeartRadio, iTunes, Castbox, Stitcher, FM Player, TuneIn. You can send us a commercial, or we can create one for you at no additional charge. Okay, so email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And our current promotion is buy 1 month, get 1 month free. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And if you want to support us through Cash App or PayPal, $ TheAHNShow through Cash App. And then also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow. We're here 6 days a week. And so let's keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. This is our official Cash App account, $ TheAHNShow, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael and shows my picture there. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Mental health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African-American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.
Soul in Motion, celebrating 38 years in the arts. This energetic ensemble of dancers and drummers was started by percussionist Michael Friend and is led by choreographer Associate Director Pam Lassiter. Based in the Washington, D.C. area, Soul in Motion is now accepting bookings for Black History Month, Juneteenth, and summer festivals in 2022. Soul in Motion is also available for more intimate events like naming ceremonies and weddings. To find out more or book your date, call 240-452-1349 or send an email to info@soulinmotion.org. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Soul in Motion, celebrating our history, our culture, our future. Soul in Motion. Theater, African dance, and drumming since 1984.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world. Bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30 plus